Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. In less than 24 hours, a conflict that had dragged on for over 35 long years, for which 2 wars had been fought, ended with just one night of heavy fire. Nagorno-Karabakh, the Armenian enclave inside the Azerbaijani territory, was effectively disarmed and forced to surrender in a manner that no one expected. Tens of thousands of people have died fighting for it. Peace plan after peace plan in the last 3 decades had ended in failure. But now, with the ethnic Armenian population leaving altogether, it is being widely believed that the conflict for Nagorno-Karabakh has ended for good. But old feuds have a way of resurfacing long after they are believed to be dead. But the larger question in the Caucasus is this: will peace now have a chance between Armenia and Azerbaijan, or will the old ethno-religious fault lines still continue to dictate the relations between the two neighbors? For over 3 decades, ever since Armenia and Azerbaijan became independent after the breakup of the Soviet Union, Baku and Yerevan have fought 2 major wars and several protracted low-intensity guerrilla conflicts. Make no mistake about this, the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict is both territorial and ethnic, with neither side willing to budge from their entrenched positions. But it has now ended with a lightning strike by Azerbaijan, catching Armenia and the rest of the world by complete surprise. On the 20th of September, Azerbaijan announced the beginning of its anti-terror operations in the enclave. Its stated objective was to make the Armenian forces in Karabakh to surrender. Videos put out by the Azerbaijan Defense Ministry will give you a glimpse of the pitched battles that were fought as the Azeri forces moved in. As reports of Azerbaijan's lightning offensive into Nagorno-Karabakh spread across Armenia, thousands of ethnic Armenians took to the streets in Yerevan. Condemning the lax approach of the Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, the Armenians tried to storm into the government buildings. But the Armenian forces were just not prepared to come to the rescue of the ethnic Armenian military in Karabakh. Questions were raised about the role of the Russian peacekeepers who were stationed in Karabakh to maintain order. Some angry Armenians crowded around the Russian embassy in Yerevan and tore off their Russian passports. But no help was forthcoming from any quarter. Azerbaijan's offensive inflicted many casualties. The Armenian forces in Karabakh were forced to surrender, with white flags unfurled on their armoured vehicles. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the offensive ended. Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev appeared on national television and claimed victory. He even assured the Armenians living in Nagorno-Karabakh that their safety and cultural rights would be respected.
5 days ago, we fully ensured and repaired our full sovereignty. As a result of anti-terrorism measures that were enacted within 24 hours, even less, the Armenian army that was illegally settled in Azerbaijan territory surrendered. It accepted our conditions, and thus Azerbaijan fully ensured the sovereignty of its own government. The people living in the Karabakh region are Azerbaijan citizens regardless of their nationality. Their safety, security and well-being will be ensured by the state of Azerbaijan.
But these words of assurances inspired little confidence amongst the Armenians. When Armenia had won the first Nagorno-Karabakh war in 1994, Azeris had been expelled from their homes, and the Armenians, fearing reprisals this time round, began to flee in long, unending convoy of vehicles winding through the mountains of Karabakh. The satellite images of the Armenians fleeing from Karabakh will give you a glimpse of the exodus. Azerbaijan even rounded up the Armenian leadership of Nagorno-Karabakh. Ruben Vardayan, who headed Karabakh's separatist government from November 2022 till February 2023, was paraded with handcuffs. The separatist leadership had claimed that Nagorno-Karabakh as a separate enclave would end by the end of this year. But from the exodus that is being witnessed, Armenian presence in Nagorno-Karabakh could end in a matter of days. At a time when the rest of the world was occupied with the meetings at the United Nations General Assembly and Russia's war in Ukraine, Azerbaijan, with one night of heavy bombings on Armenian positions, has changed the map of the Caucasus. But ethnic cleansing and redrawal of borders is not new to this region. When Armenia had won the first Nagorno-Karabakh war in 1994, it had expelled over 500,000 Azerbaijanis from Karabakh and the areas around it. And now, more than 100,000 ethnic Armenians are said to be fleeing from the mountains of Karabakh. But almost every single one of them says that they'll one day return again soon.
After having seen everything, it pains me to be leaving Nagorno-Karabakh. But I have hope that I'll be able to come back. In terms of wanting to stay in Nagorno-Karabakh, Nagorno-Karabakh is one of the paradises on earth that cannot be traded with or compared to islands or wealth. The world should not believe that we are willingly leaving Nagorno-Karabakh ever. We fought till the very end, with our blood, with our lives, to protect our country.
Just when you thought the tensions between Serbia and Kosovo couldn't get any worse, a deadly siege at a Serbian Orthodox monastery in the rest of northern part of Kosovo has laid open the fault lines. An estimated 4 people, including a Kosovan policeman, were killed in the incident that has now been described as one of the worst escalation in years. Kosovo's Prime Minister Albin Kurti described the siege of the monastery as nothing less than an incursion by Serbia-backed criminals, while the Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić blamed Kosovo for what he alleged as months of provocations. Ever since Kosovo declared independence from Serbia just about 15 years ago in 2008, the relations between Belgrade and Pristina have been pretty frosty at the best of times. But what has sparked concerns with this incident is the willingness of factions in the region to use violent means to achieve political goals.
Trouble began at 3 a.m. in the early hours of the morning on the 24th of September. Masked attackers wearing army fatigues ambushed a police patrol near the village of Banjska in northern Kosovo. One Kosovo law enforcement officer was killed, while another sustained serious injuries. An estimated 30 gunmen then fled to a nearby Serbian Orthodox monastery and barricaded themselves. As Kosovo's police began a clearance operation, the attackers resorted to the use of shoulder-fired missiles and hand grenades. 3 of the attackers were killed as the standoff continued through the day. The Kosovan authorities made several arrests and seized a large amount of weapons and equipment.
It was on Sunday that it was the problem that firefight began. In fact, in the main road that you came through, it was the place where my officer was killed, shot and killed. And then the whole part that you see around here was used to shell us, for mortar shells was used, and for shooting at us. So then the police responded, and we took over this place. As you know, we had 3 casualties in the part of the armed group, and 2 people that we have arrested.
The Jarinje and Brinkjak border crossings between Serbia and Kosovo have been shut following the incident. 3 Kosovan Serbs captured in the gun battle were presented in a court for hearing in Pristina, while the rest of the attackers are reported to have fled into Serbia. The Kosovo police sealed off the village of Banjska and continued with their search operations. Kosovo's Prime Minister Albin Kurti was categorical. He blamed Belgrade for hatching the conspiracy to carry out the attack.
Organized crime with political, financial and logistical support from official Belgrade is attacking our country. In this battle, we implement and protect the law. We protect citizens without distinction and independent Kosovo. Criminals and those who gave the order will be caught, tried and punished. The government is ready to respond to crime and criminals, terror and terrorists.
But the Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić rubbished the allegations. Instead, he blamed the violence on the policies pursued by Albin Kurti.
Kosovo's Prime Minister Albin Kurti deserted the local Serbs to worry about their future, and all the time he kept provoking them. I regret that some Serbs succumbed to those provocations. Albin Kurti is the only one to blame. Albin Kurti is the only one who wants conflict and war. No other man wants conflict and war besides him. His life's desire is to drag us into the war with NATO, and he has no other desires. That's the only thing he does all the time. The only thing.
Disputed mayoral elections earlier in the month of May had resulted in violent clashes. in which about 30 NATO peacekeepers and over 50 Serb protesters were injured. The bitterness between Kosovo and Serbia goes back decades. With the dissolution of Yugoslavia in the 1990s, Kosovo, then a province of the former nation, had sought independence. Serbia responded with brute force. The violence ended with NATO's intervention with a bombing campaign against Serbia from March till June in 1999. Serbian forces were forced to pull out of Kosovo, and a decade later, in 2008, Kosovo unilaterally declared independence. But for Kosovo and Serbia, the conflict has never really ended, and the siege at the Serbian Orthodox monastery is the latest reminder that the embers of conflict still burn bright beneath the surface.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is scratching on the lid of the Pandora's box, but backing Khalistani separatists in the name of freedom of expression. What Trudeau is actually validating is a movement to dismember India. Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a designated Khalistani terrorist, was gunned down by two masked assailants on the 18th of June earlier this year. And 2 months later, the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau linked the murder of Niger to agents of the Government of India on the basis of what he termed were credible allegations.
Over the past number of weeks, Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the Government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
He further claimed that this incident had infringed upon Canada's sovereignty. Now, it is one thing to make these wild allegations, but it is totally another to back the allegations with proof. A fortnight has now come and gone by, and Justin Trudeau so far has not been able to produce even a shred of evidence. New Delhi, on the other hand, has put out a dossier detailing Hardeep Singh Nijjar's links with terror and thuggery. Niger reportedly was a close associate of Khalistan Commando Force militant Gurdeep Singh, who had been involved in more than 200 killings in Punjab in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Hardeep Singh Nijjar fled to Canada in 1996 using a forged passport after his name had cropped up in several terror-related cases. Initially, he had maintained a low profile as a truck driver, but soon he came in touch with the Pakistan-based Khalistan Tiger Force chief Jakhtar Singh Tara. In April 2012, Hardeep Singh Nijjar had travelled to Pakistan as a member of the Baisakhi Jatha and had undergone arms and explosive training for a fortnight. In 2014, Nijjar had planned to execute a terror attack on the Dera Sacha Sauda headquarters in Haryana's Sirsa. But according to the Indian government's dossier, Nijjar redirected his terror module to target the former DGP Mohammad Izhar Alam, the Punjab-based Shiv Sena leader Nishant Sharma, and Baba Man Singh Pehova Wale. Hardeep Singh Nijjar also reportedly worked very closely with the Punjab-based gangster Arshdeep Singh Gill from Moga to carry out terror activities in Punjab. In 2021, Hardeep Singh Nijjar had allegedly asked the gangster Arshdeep to murder the priest of the Bhar Singh Pura village. In this manner, Hardeep Singh Nijjar had actually built up an elaborate network of terror and crime across Punjab, but operating from behind the scenes from Canada. Now, to gain legitimacy with the larger public, criminals and gangsters often wear the mantle of religion and nationalism, which is precisely what some of the Khalistani separatists and terrorists are doing. But what really is Khalistan? In its simplest definition, Khalistan refers to the land of the Khalsa. The word Khalsa is derived from the Arabic word Khalis, which means to be pure, to be free, to be clear, to be true, and to be solid. So Khalistan effectively means the land of the pure. In the tumultuous decade of the 1940s, when India achieved its independence from the British, the parallel discourse that dominated the fate of the Indian subcontinent was the flawed and the pernicious two-nation theory, which ended with a bloody and tragic partition of one people. India emerged as a secular republic, while Pakistan took birth as an Islamic republic. The idea of Sikh separatism also took birth in the 1940s. But in the rough and tumble of the most strident two-nation Hindu-Muslim debate, the six separatist voices were drowned out. In 1952, India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, was opposed to the demand of a Punjabi-speaking state. But eventually, the state of Punjab was created in 1966 with Chandigarh as the shared capital. But in the 1970s and 80s, the Khalistan movement gained momentum, spurred by the firebrand Sikh rebel leader Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale. The demand for Khalistan did not just remain an idea, it acquired the form of an armed rebellion. And this armed rebellion lasted for more than a decade, to which the Indian government under Indira Gandhi responded with a violent crackdown. In 1982, Bhindranwale moved into the Golden Temple, the holiest place of worship for the Sikhs, and established a sort of parallel government. In 1983, Bhindranwale's militant cadre fortified the Sikh shrine. In 1984, the Indian forces stormed the Golden Temple to flush out Bhindranwale and his militants as part of Operation Blue Star. On the 31st of October in 1984, the then Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was assassinated by two of her Sikh bodyguards. On the 23rd of June in 1985, an Air India flight that was travelling from Canada to India via London exploded mid-air at an altitude of 31,000 feet over the Atlantic Ocean. All 329 people on board were killed, making it the worst terror attack in Canadian history. Terry Milewski, a Canadian journalist and an author who has written the book Blood for Blood, 50 Years of the Global Khalistan Project, has said that the Canadian intelligence agencies were actually tracking the perpetrators of the Kanishka bombings, but chose to look the other way.
Canada had been blind and foolish to allow so many dangerous people to plot, in plain sight in some cases, things like the Air India bombing. I mean, remember, maybe Indians don't know this, but remember, we had the suspects in the Kanishka bombing under surveillance, and we were wiretapping them for 3 months before the bombing, and we still didn't catch on and do something to stop it.
Under Justin Trudeau, and earlier under his father Pierre Trudeau, Canada appears to be playing a dangerous game. On the very day when Justin Trudeau was here in New Delhi for the G20 summit, the Khalistani separatists in Canada held a referendum to dismember India. The idea of Khalistan has faded into irrelevance in the minds of the Sikhs who live in India. The Sikhs constitute less than 2% of the Indian population, but by their sheer hard work and enterprising nature, they punch well above their weight. Be it in politics, economy or culture, the Sikh community in India faces no alienation, rather proud bearers of the Indian flag in all walks of life. But in Canada, the embers of Sikh separatism are being fanned by Justin Trudeau and his ilk for no greater objective than petty political profit. The faux pas by the Canadian Prime Minister and the conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh have dominated the global headlines this week. But away from the media glare, there are other conflicts that threaten to erupt into bigger conflagrations.
Taiwan has just unveiled its indigenously developed submarine as part of its mission to strengthen the island's defense and deterrence against a potential Chinese invasion. Dubbed the Narwhal, this is the first of the 8 such submarines that Taiwan intends to develop. Narwhal will enter service in 2025, joining 2 existing submarines purchased from the Netherlands in the 1980s. Narwhal has been developed at a cost of $1.53 billion and will use a combat system by Lockheed Martin and will carry the US-made Mark 48 heavyweight torpedoes. Narwhal will enter sea trials by next month before delivery to the Navy by the end of 2024. On the other hand, China has been conducting repeated military drills along the Taiwan Strait with more than 100 fighter jets and over 20 naval vessels to break, as it describes the arrogance of the separatist forces. Peru has declared a state of emergency in parts of its capital, Lima, in order to combat the sharp surge in gang violence and organized crime. With this, the Peruvian military will be called in to enforce order in the capital, In recent days, police reported attacks in San Juan, including the throwing of a war grenade into a nightclub, which resulted in at least 15 people getting injured. In 2022, the city of Lima recorded 160,200 incidents of serious crimes, as opposed to the previous year, where the police had registered 120,350 cases. Police chases, armed robberies, kidnappings for ransom, and killings have become a feature of the Peruvian capital, which has forced the Dina Boluarte government to finally act. Violence has again flared up in Manipur over the alleged killings of 2 students who were earlier reported missing in July. Authorities have again declared an indefinite curfew in Imphal and parts of Manipur after more than 80 students were injured in the violence on the 27th of September. Mobile internet services have again been suspended. Experts have dubbed the situation in Manipur as an intense civil war fought over land, jobs, and political clout between the 2 largest local groups in the state, that is, the Métis and the Kukis. More than half the state's population of 3.2 million belongs to the Métis community, while the Kuki community, who make up about 43%, live mostly in the hills. The violence, which erupted on the 3rd of May, has resulted in the deaths of more than 180 people, while over 50,000 have fled from their homes. According to reports, an angry mob even tried to set fire to the ancestral home of the Manipur Chief Minister N. Biren Singh, although the Chief Minister himself was not present at the time of the attack. French troops will exit completely by the end of this year, admitted French President Emmanuel Macron, after Niger's military junta announced their expulsion from the West African nation after the coup in July. The French ambassador Sylvain Aite landed back in Paris after having stayed on in Niamey, where he claimed he had been treated like a hostage and had accused the military junta leaders of blocking food deliveries to his mission in Niamey. The expulsion of the French presence from Niger points to the weakening stranglehold of France in West Africa, a region where it had earlier lorded over as a colonial power.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of World at War. And if you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, feel free to do so on the ID that you're looking at on your screens. I'm your host, Mohammed Saleh, and I'll see you again next week.